Hello, students. Okay, so we kind of do these in pairs so that you understand. The one that we're working with is referred to as this, so you can see that there. And the one that we are inheriting from is called base. And that'll come into play more when we're talking about task 2, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a little bit. Okay, so I'm doing this because of the fact that we can create multiple classes, and back here you can see that I have choice 1, and inside of choice 1 I create a new one and I add that to the panel. I can work with it, I can click those radio buttons, I can have it display in a text box and so forth, and then I can click on a button and make it all go away, or to do whatever I want with a button. It's not solely to make it go away. I have another one here for display 2, which you might have seen on the thing, and when I do it, I instantiate another class called choice 2, and choice 2, again, same basic thing that we're talking about here, but instead of our panel here, I've got panel author. It's kind of a thing, and this is more of a real-world example here. Even though it's basically the same encoding, I wanted you to see a slightly more practical example. This one was sort of inspired from last semester when Salima came up with a project concept for collecting the information for APA references. Now, I only did a small portion of it, but you can see what it does here. First of all, let me pull it up on screen. When I click this, I have the ability to choose either name or title, because sometimes you have an article that doesn't have author names. They should, but sometimes it's just a title. So if I type in a title like, so if we run display 2, it should look like this. And if we chose title, for instance, and typed in Gone with the Wind, chose a particular date. I don't know when it was written particularly. Oops. I'm just going to go with when I think the movie came out in 39. I don't know what month, and I don't know what day. Title, everything. And the thing puts in the time. Generally speaking, I would clip that off for APA, but anyway, this is a date picker type of thing, and is convenient for this sort of thing. If we were doing something with no date, we could choose this and then choose no date, which takes away the date picker, so there's no doubt to the user that you're not supposed to pick a date. And you could see it puts that in here for the user. It's worth noting that you see this quote, and then there's an end quote, and in the middle here there's a slash quote. The slash indicates that escape sequence, which says we're not treating this as a quote in our code, we're treating this as something we want to put inside of the string. So quote, and then this text, and then again, same type of thing, put another quote on the other side, so that when we run it and we're doing a title, that we can type whatever we want here, and then we can see that enclosed in quotes here. And my no date didn't work here, but that's because of a quirk in the code, which I should have done. Here you can see where I did author, and I said if name was checked, blah, blah, blah. I should have done the same thing here. I should have said if radio button date dot checked then collect the actual date, otherwise then odate equals n dot d dot to indicate no date. And then this wouldn't have been the right place for that. Okay, so, and then we can see that, and this occurs because of the fact that if we choose to put something in, and then select it before all of that has had a chance to be cycled through, then it just goes with the original item. But now you can see that that's working properly. And obviously we wouldn't want to do just this, we'd want to do the other stuff, and then we'd want to store it all together in a database or in a file, and be able to use that information at a later time. You could spend an awful lot of time putting in the data into a class and then printing it out. APA also provides for multiple authors and things like that, so that's another thing that you would have to accommodate. But this is essentially what you would be working with, and so forth. Now again, when we do this, we have a class, and this is choice 2, and it's also inheriting from the form, and then there is the constructor, which is initializing component, okay, and that's this thing right here, and there's an awful lot of stuff in here. I'll just breeze through it. This is all generated by Visual Studio. You don't have to type all of this in, any of this in that section, okay? So this is the kind of stuff that is hidden from you most of the time. Okay, and again, because I have to pass back the panel in order to get the form, I have this get in here, and there's no set to go with it, so that there's no way to modify the panel. Down here, there's some code for the radio buttons. basically there's some things here that that block the user from being able to type in a title when you're looking for the author's name, or vice versa. If there's no author's name, it enables the not that one. It enables the title and not the name, and vice versa. This is date. There it is, title. Okay, so it disables first name, last name, and then enables title, or you can choose to have the author name, first name, last name, and not a title. So it these two reverse each other. And that grays out the text boxes correspondingly. Same with date to a different degree. The only difference is that when there isn't a date, I make sure to completely block the date picker and make it invisible so that you can't, that there's no, that the user has no way to potentially try to pick a date and then complain that, oh, they can't pick a date. Well, you chose no date, so you can't do it. The bug that came up when I was showing it to you, where it didn't show the date, was because of the fact that when the program starts, I set defaults for first name. I set default for the date being that the date picker needs to be up and everything like that, ready to go. But what I didn't set was a default date, so that it would have something in there regardless, and that choosing a date would overwrite that date. And so that's something to have considered. I should have put it right about here, where it automatically pulls whatever date is available at that particular point, because it's supposed to pull a date in this particular spot, but that only happens if you've changed to that particular thing at that particular point. Since I started with a date, then that isn't necessarily valid. Theoretically, if I move this line down here, then that shouldn't be a problem. Anyway, so this is something that I can put out there and you can play around with.